Hello, this is Zamanzadeh from ZZNetworking.com. In order to see better, press this icon to view full screen. In the previous tutorials, I introduced you to the primary key, foreign key constraints. There are some other constraints as well that you need to know about in order to properly understand Oracle. One of the other constraints is called the unique constraint. This ensures that all data values stored in a specified column are unique. The unique constraint differs from the primary key constraint in that it allows null values. So remember, in a primary key constraint, when you designate a column as a primary key column, you cannot have any null values. In a unique column, a column that you designate as unique, either first name, last name, you cannot have repeating values, but you can have null values. So that's one thing to be aware of. In addition, we have something called a check constraint. A check constraint ensures that a specified condition is true before the data value is added to a table. For example, an order's ship date cannot be earlier than its order date. So we put a check constraint on our shipping to make sure that when somebody orders something and we log in that they ordered it at a specific date, when we log in that that the item has been shipped to them, that date can't be prior to their order date. That ensures that our data is being entered in correctly, that there are no mistakes. And finally, we also have something called a not null constraint. Now, this ensures that a specified column cannot contain a null value. The not null constraint can be created only with the column level approach to table creation. Now, constraints can be created one of two ways: table level or column level. I'll describe that momentarily. First, I'd like to show you each one of these constraints has an abbreviation. For primary key, it's -PK, foreign key -FK, unique -UK, and check is -CK, not null is -NN. Now, a column level constraint is on the column level. You would typically put the column name followed by the constraint name and then the constraint type. Now, I'm going to give you several examples of each one of these, so don't let this confuse you. This is basically the given syntax. You list which column you want to put this on. You put the column name down. You then go ahead and put down the name of the constraint that you want. And then you go ahead and indicate what constraint type it is. That's if you're making a column level constraint. Suppose instead that you want to have a table level constraint. For a table level constraint, you once again put down the constraint. You put the word constraint. You put the constraint name. You put the constraint type. And finally, in parentheses, you put down the column names you want. And if there's more than one column, you can put a comma and separate them, and then close the parentheses. That's the general format for making constraints. I'm going to show you several examples of these. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and log into Oracle. So we can get this up and running. And we're going to look at some of our tables, and there we'll decide what constraints we want to put and for what reason. So now that I'm logging into Oracle, when we look at a table, it's important to indicate what information we want to put in there and what kind of how we should organize our constraints. So let's go ahead and look at our first table, our table rep. Now, I'll start off by saying select all from rep. We look at the following table, and we're going to notice that we have the rep number. We've already indicated that's a primary key, so it cannot be a null value, and our rep numbers cannot repeat. We can't have two representatives that are named 15, that the rep number is 15 or 25 or 35, and we also can't have a null value. Now, suppose we want to ensure that our representatives are not married or don't live at the same address. We want to ensure that all our representatives are individuals who are not related to anybody who's also working for a company. And some companies consider that important. So we might want to put down that for perhaps their street address has to be unique. Now, if we put down that their street address has to be unique, we ensure that two people who are working for a company don't live at the same address. That might be a company policy. However, with a unique constraint, remember, a unique constraint can have null values. So if we want to ensure that when our representatives are being added into this table, that no two representatives live in the same address, and at the same time, we want to make sure that when their information is being added, that a null value is not there. We're going to have to actually add two constraints. So we go here, we say describe rep, and we'll see the information for this rep table momentarily. For the street column, we don't have any constraints on it right now, but we would add two constraints. We would first of all say that it has to be a unique street address, and in addition, it cannot be null. So that would be two. Now, suppose we also want to ensure that the last name and first name is put in there. Well, you might have two employees who are not related to each other but have the same last name or have the same first name. So we don't necessarily want to put a unique constraint for those two columns, for first name and last name. It's possible to have two people working for us whose first name is John, or two people working for us whose last name happens to be Smith, but they're not related. So but at the same time, we want to ensure that when the person is entering in the information for our representatives, they don't leave that column null. So for that, we would simply put a not null constraint on last name and first name. Now, in addition, let's go ahead and look at the orders table. So we'll go ahead and code select all columns from orders. And here we see that we have order date. Now, let's go ahead and select all from order line. Unfortunately, it will be harder to show a check constraint with the columns we have. Typically, if we wanted to make sure that an item was not shipped prior to their order date, that would be a good example of a check constraint. Another way to have a check constraint perhaps would be on quoted price. Like, for instance, we don't want the quoted price to be less than a certain value. Perhaps we want our quoted price to always be higher than a certain value or less than a certain value. We don't want somebody to accidentally put the quoted price as $123, like for our first record, when it's only $23, or we don't want somebody to accidentally forget about the 2 and just simply enter in $3.56 and give the person an enormous discount when we're shipping to them. That would be another way we can use the check constraint. In future videos, I'm going to give you more examples. I hope this has been helpful for you. Thank you for your time. May God bless you.